Bay Area School Board pumping the brakes on deciding whether to close Tank Elementary School. As we've reported, Tank was on the chopping block as part of the district's long-term reorganization plan. In a First Alert update, Emily Beyer explains why changes at another school means Tank could still see students in the coming years.
All right, I think we're ready to vote.
The Green Bay Area School Board deciding Monday night to press pause on deciding to close Tank Elementary School.
All votes have been entered and the motion has passed with all board members voting in favor.
The plan was for students at Tank to move to Fort Howard Elementary School, but Fort Howard's expansion of special education programming means fewer spots to take on more students.
So the question was, can we move Tank in its entirety over to Fort Howard without having to make any modifications? And my answer to that would be no.
The proposed recommendation is to find a different school for Tank Elementary students or to add an addition onto Fort Howard.
I would propose just waiting here because now there's multiple things that could happen. Yes, in the end, more than one school will close on the west side, but now who's going where? I think that's too much to figure out here, and I think there's plenty of things to be looked at that we can just pause on what to do with Tank, especially if we don't know where we might add.
The board ultimately agreeing to postpone the motion indefinitely to look into more options. The next regular board meeting is July 24th. In Green Bay, Emily Beyer, Action 2 News.